7 miraculous signs confirmed by the divine. Your soul's hardest lesson has been revealed. In a quaint English village, a centuries-old chapel stood as a radiant beacon of hope and community, blessing those who entered with a divine tapestry of faith. This was a place where miracles unfurled like blooming flowers in spring, casting fragrant petals of hope upon heavy hearts. But amidst the whispers of divine wonders, one devoted father named David found himself locked in the throes of despair. His once bright world dimmed after a tragic accident led to devastating news about his beloved wife. The diagnosis was a thief, stealing away her strength and their future together. With anguish clenching his heart, David wrestled not only with grief, but also with a questioning faith, wondering where God fit into this sorrowful narrative. Flickering candles cast warm glows over the congregation assembled within the chapel, their faces illuminated by prayers that floated through the air like sweet incense. David sat at the back, his heart heavy, a stone in a sea of believing souls. The village buzzed with preparations for the annual vigil honoring their cherished patron saint, Saint Michael, a figure whose miraculous interventions were woven into every story of faith in the community. As villagers shared heartfelt testimonies of healing and divine encounters, these tales sounded distant to David, echoes from a world he no longer felt a part of. It was then that Father Thomas, wise and gentle, approached him, his eyes glistening with an understanding that felt palpable. "Open your heart, David," he urged softly. "You might just discover the signs we need among us." David's heart twinged at his words, an ember of hope lighting amidst the ashes of doubt. Before long, despite his inner turmoil, David found himself compelled to join the chorus of voices rising in prayer. Their unified sound enveloped him, weaving threads of community and connection that he desperately desired to embrace. Yet, each invocation felt like a test of his resolve. Hope mingled with rebellion as he fought against the very faith that had once been his anchor. As the evening deepened, the air thick with fervor, something magical began to unfold. A small child beside him, innocent and free of burdens, whispered a simple prayer. "Dear Saint Michael, help us. Let our wishes fly on angel wings." With each word, an energy rippled through the crowd, and David felt his heart race. It was as if the very heavens paused to take notice, their attention fierce and unwavering. Could this be a moment of divine clarity? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the prayers swelled, David wrestled internally. Was this child's prayer a beacon of possibility? Could it truly move mountains, alter fate? The chapel vibrated with spirit, alive and electric. Yet he remained caught, words lodged stubbornly in his throat. Doubts loomed like dark shadows just out of sight, waiting to engulf him. But amid the surge of hope and conviction flooding the chapel, David realized that perhaps the greatest mystery lay in simply being there. Amidst the shared yearning for miracles, with every eye closed and every hand joined in fervent prayer, David stood on the precipice of belief and doubt. As their calls summoned Saint Michael, he couldn't shake the feeling that a miracle was about to unfold. Would he, too, embrace the unseen wonder waiting to bloom in the depths of his despair? The night felt heavy with unanswered questions as they called out for grace, leaving David questioning his very essence in the rich tapestry of divine mystery that enveloped them all. As the last echoes of the prayers cascaded into the stillness of the chapel, an unexpected hush enveloped the room. The flickering candles now appeared to radiate a more profound luminescence, casting dancing shadows that swirled like gentle angels around the walls. A sensation swept through David, one that felt like a pulse, beating softly yet insistently within him. It was a warmth that lingered at the edges of his grief, teasing him with its promise of peace. Father Thomas began to share a story steeped in faith, recalling the times villagers had witnessed the power of Saint Michael during moments of despair. With each word, he painted a vivid picture of healing, resilience, and miracles that ignited the faith of those present. The congregation responded, their voices harmonizing behind him, drawing David back into the embrace of the community. For an instant, the weight in his chest lightened, and he wished simply to believe. Yet as the tale wove its intricate strands of hope and miracles, traces of doubt crept back. David felt like a spectator, precariously balanced between despair and faith. Could I, too, find deliverance within these walls? He pondered, glancing at the faces surrounding him. They shone with anticipation, their eyes glistening with hope, yet David felt a chasm between their faith and his. Suddenly, the chapel doors swung open with a force that took many by surprise. A cold wind swept through the air, rustling the pages of hymnals like whispers of forgotten prayers. The villagers turned, startled at the unexpected intrusion. A figure appeared in the doorway, a woman, bedraggled yet radiant, pulled by an unseen force. Gasps filled the room as she stepped forward, her clothes tattered but her spirit seemingly glowing. "Is it truly you?" one villager exclaimed, tears pooling in their eyes. Whispers exploded among the congregation as the identity of the woman dawned on them. It was Mary, David's wife. Rumors had fluttered like anxious birds in the village for weeks, suggesting her condition was dire. Yet here she stood, alive, breathing, an embodiment of hope. That David's heart raced, confusion colliding with amazement. It felt as if the very air crackled with divine energy, resonating through every soul present. "Mary," he called out, his voice trembling, carrying more questions than he dared to speak. Could it be true? Was this a miracle unfolding before his very eyes? Mary stepped closer, her gaze finding David's. "I felt the prayers," she whispered, her voice strained but filled with warmth. "Every prayer, every hope you've all placed in St. Michael, it brought me back." Her words washed over him like a healing balm, igniting long-buried embers of faith within his soul. As David stepped forward, the chapel erupted into joyous exclamations, laughter merging with tears of relief. It was a moment suspended in time, where sorrow breathed its last under the weight of loving grace. But beneath the surface, another question bubbled, gnawing at his heart. If this was indeed a miracle, what greater purpose did it serve? With every eye now firmly focused on Mary, David found himself in a whirlwind of emotions, grappling with newfound hope and the uncertainties that lay ahead. The community rejoiced, yet he stood still, caught between the miracle that was unfolding and the deeper mystery that remained at the heart of it all. As the atmosphere shifted, the air thick with divine wonderment, David knew that this was just the beginning. Faith was not merely about receiving answers, but embracing the journey ahead with courage and love. What would this miracle mean for their family, and how would it shape the weary hearts of those around them? As their harmonious calls of gratitude echoed through the night, David realized that perhaps the hardest lesson was yet to reveal itself, one where understanding and faith intertwined in ways unseen. They were in the midst of a divine narrative, one that continued to unfold. What awaited them beyond this miraculous night? Mary stepped closer to David, the golden glow of candlelight reflecting in her eyes. The congregation held its breath, awash with joy yet sprinkled with an air of reverence. Every heart resonated with wonder as uncertainty lingered. David reached for Mary, brushing his fingers against hers, feeling the warmth of her skin replace the cold grasp of fear that had haunted him for weeks. "Is it really you?" he repeated, clinging to the warmth of her presence as if it might dissolve the doubts that still clung to him. His heart raced, but the rhythm tempered by the enchantment surrounding them. "Yes, David," she affirmed, her voice a soft melody amidst the symphony of gasps and cheers. "I am here by grace, by each prayer offered, each hope tethered to the heavens." In that moment, the weight of grief lifted slightly, revealing the truth that had hidden beneath. It was not only her return that astonished him, but also the unshakable aura of love that enveloped them both. He felt the presence of something greater, a current of divinity flowing through the very walls of the chapel, binding everyone together. Father Thomas stepped forward, his face illuminated by the flickering candlelight. "This is a moment to celebrate the power of faith, a reminder that when we join together in prayer, miracles can happen." Excitement rippled through the crowd, echoing his spirited proclamation. Yet, uncertainty still anchored David. He noticed the mixed reactions in the congregation. Some wept openly, while others stood frozen in astonishment. Among them, he recognized faces marked by despair, their own journeys of struggle intertwining with his and Mary's. What are their hopes? Their prayers? Did they not call for their own miracles? David's heart stirred with compassion. In the joy of Mary's return, was there room for others' anguish as well? He glanced at the villagers, their eyes wide with amazement. "Mary," he said, turning to his wife, "what about everyone else? What about their families, their battles?" Mary's gaze softened, understanding sprawling within her countenance. "We give what we can, David. Faith multiplies when shared, when we stand as one. Perhaps our miracle is the starting point, the light they need." Her words struck David like a bell tolling in the quiet of dawn. He could sense the deep connection that anchored them to each other, to their community, and to a divine purpose that danced just beyond their understanding. As the evening wore on, the chapel pulsed with life. The villagers shared testimonies of their struggles, weaving their stories into a tapestry of faith. Soft cries of praise and joyful laughter filled the space, energies weaving together as they embraced the miracle like a precious gift. With each shared story, David felt the remaining fragments of doubt begin to crack. The shared vulnerability transformed desperation into unity, allowing a warmth to seep into the very marrow of their souls. It was there, amidst the collective heartbeat of humanity, that the divine was often revealed. Yet, as the service drew to a close, a flicker of trepidation surfaced within him. What would tomorrow bring? Would his faith remain steadfast in the face of doubt? As the congregation joined hands in a circle of prayer, David felt the familiar pulse of warmth return within him. In that moment, he surrendered to the whispering uncertainty, allowing the depth of the mystery to envelop him. Perhaps the hardest lesson was not in the miracle itself, but in what it was meant to awaken in their hearts. He looked at Mary, her smile radiant yet contemplative. Could they navigate the unknown together? What lay waiting beyond the veil of this miraculous night, where faith and purpose intertwined? The answer lingered just out of reach, inviting them into deeper revelations and uncharted paths. Would they be bold enough to follow? The following day dawned with a quiet stillness that felt both heavy and hopeful. David sat by the window, the pale morning sun spilling golden rays across the wooden floor. He watched as the village slowly woke up. Each familiar sound seemed to carry the weight of something profound. Birds chirped their morning songs, and the distant clanging of the blacksmith's hammer echoed like a heartbeat, reminding him of life's rhythm. Mary entered the room, her presence a soothing balm. She moved with grace, the gentle whisper of her movements filling the space with warmth. David sighed, exhaling the lingering tension that had gripped him since their reunion. He turned to her, hunger in his heart for understanding. "What now, Mary? What does today hold for us?" With a knowing smile, she knelt beside him, taking his hands in hers. "Today is a day of awakening, David. Our miracle is not just for us. It is a gift meant to be shared. The love we felt last night must spread beyond these walls." His heart swelled at the thought. Could their experience spark hope in others? The village carried burdens heavier than they had ever known. Many had lost faith amidst trials that seemed insurmountable. David could still see the haunted expressions of those who had waited in despair for a sign, a whisper from above. But how do we reach them? Mary's eyes twinkled with reassurance. By simply being, by sharing our hearts fully, by embodying the miracle of love and hope. We must visit those who are suffocating under sorrow, lift them with the testimony of our faith. A determined fire ignited within David. He realized the profound truth of her words. Their journey was just beginning. "Then let us go," he declared, pulling on his coat. He felt like a vessel filled with an urgent energy, ready to spill over. As they stepped into the streets, they were met with curious glances and tentative smiles. The villagers were still mulling over the previous night's extraordinary events. David and Mary made their way toward the home of Mrs. Adeline, a widow whose days were shrouded in grief. Upon reaching her door, they knocked softly. The creaking sound of hinges revealed a frail figure with sorrow etched into her features. David swallowed hard, his heart aching. "Mrs. Adeline," he began, "we come with news of hope, of love that conquers all." Her eyes widened, disbelief clouding her gaze. You've come to remind me of what I've lost," she whispered, her voice trembling. Mary stepped forward, her presence radiating warmth. "No, dear friend. We come to share a miracle, a renewed promise that love never dies. It transcends even the deepest pain. David knows this, as do I. We have witnessed it." Tears welled in Mrs. Adeline's eyes, glistening like morning dew. She hesitated, then opened her arms to embrace them both. In that sacred moment, healing began to flow like gentle rain upon the parched ground of her spirit. As they continued visiting others, David felt their hearts begin to open up. Each house transformed into a sanctuary of shared stories and rekindled faith. Laughter mingled with tears, a sweet symphony of healing that echoed through the village. Yet, a stirring left behind an unanswered question. Was this newfound hope enough to transcend the darker shadows of life? David's thoughts wandered to the concerns looming behind closed doors, hidden struggles waiting patiently for light. He glanced at Mary, sensing that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges. Miracles needed to be sustained, and doubts would quietly creep back in. "What if our efforts are not enough?" he asked softly. Mary paused, her gaze steady, reflecting both confidence and compassion. Each act of love holds a seed of faith. We may not understand how they will grow, but we must trust that where the true beauty lies. As twilight approached, casting soft shadows in the gentle evening light, David realized this was only the beginning. Just as they had shed their fears, others would need guidance in ill-lit places. What awaited them on this path? Their journey carried whispers of hope, urging them towards something more significant, something divine. Yet, as they stepped into the next day, an unexpected challenge loomed ahead. Would their faith withstand the test of tomorrow? The sun rose again, draping the village in a warm embrace. David and Mary found themselves at the heart of their mission, feeling the weight of anticipation settling around them. The streets buzzed with a sense of change, but was it enough to spark a true renewal? They set out toward the grove, a place of reflection that had witnessed generations of faith. As they walked, the air thickened with an energy that whispered promises. David felt reminded of the biblical stories of old, the moments when God moved through simple acts of love and faith. "Mary," he said, his voice mild yet filled with purpose, "what if our presence here is a stepping stone for something greater?" Mary smiled softly, her gaze fixed on the dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves above. "Each step, David, is a part of his plan. It is not just about what we see. It is about what unfolds within us and those we touch." As they entered the grove, they were greeted by the familiar sight of villagers sitting in circles, sharing their burdens. David's heart raced, for in their faces lay the echoes of despair that had once gripped his own mind. They approached a group gathered around Samuel, an elderly man whose laughter echoed through the grove despite the shadows of sorrow that lingered in his eyes. "David, Mary," he exclaimed, waving them over, "your presence is like the sun breaking through clouds." David felt warmth wash over him. "We wanted to share something with you, something we experienced. It's about hope and love that changes everything." The villagers turned their eyes to David and Mary, curiosity glimmering. David took a deep breath, recalling the miracle they had felt just days before. As he shared, he watched the transformation in their expressions. Each word seemed to ignite a spark, melting the hard shells formed by pain. "And sometimes," he continued, "we forget to let that love in. We carry our burdens alone, thinking we have to shoulder them by ourselves. But sharing our hearts, that is where true healing begins." A soft murmur rippled through the crowd, hope weaving threads of connection. Mary followed up with her own testimony filled with conviction. "Remember, it doesn't matter how great the trial. Love casts away fear, and that love is always near." Tears began to flow freely among the listeners. Each one brought forth not just their own struggles, but the stories of their families, their neighbors. They remembered those lost to despair and the way hope felt like a distant dream. Suddenly, a vibrant elder, once vibrant with wisdom, rose from his seat. "I have seen the depths of despair," he said, his voice resonating like a drum. "But I have also witnessed love breaking through chains. You remind us that faith is not a solitary journey." As the grove erupted with a chorus of agreements, David felt joy surging deep within. It was like being caught in a torrent of healing energy, pulling them together in ways that felt utterly divine. Yet, amidst the uplifting moment, unsure questions clouded David's heart. Would this connection last? Would doubts once again attempt to overshadow their newfound bonds of faith? As the day drifted toward dusk, an unexpected breeze swept through the grove, whispering secrets that danced along the edges of unspoken fears. It carried a hint of challenge, a reminder that love must continue to fight against the shadows. Tomorrow, we must meet the hardest lesson that love wishes to teach, Mary said, her expression a delicate blend of warmth and urgency. David pondered her words, feeling the gravity of their next step tugging at the edges of his spirit. With the horizon deepening into shades of purple and gold, they looked at one another, sensing that divine mystery awaited. Would they find the strength to even outshine the darkest obstacles? The answer lay ahead, ever beckoning. As nightfall settled over the grove, a quiet tenderness enveloped the gathering. Wisps of laughter melded with whispered prayers, creating a sacred tapestry of community. David and Mary shared in this moment of unity, feeling an awakening of spirit, as if each soul present echoed the age-old stories of faith that had built their village. Yet, a deep solemnity edged David's heart. He turned his gaze toward Mary, who was captivated by the shimmering starlit sky. "What do you feel is the hardest lesson?" he asked, genuinely curious. Mary let out a soft sigh as her eyes sparkled, reflecting the stars. "It's learning to forgive, David. Holding on to pain creates barriers that keep us from love. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks true healing." The truth of her words settled heavy and sweet between them. David thought of the many hearts that might be burdened by old grievances, whether they were families torn apart by anger or friends who had lost their way. Would they be willing to embrace the challenge of forgiveness? As if sensing their thoughts, Samuel approached, his presence filled with serenity. "Forgiveness, my friends, can feel like lifting a mountain," he said, his voice a warm breeze. "Yet it's through forgiveness that we find our greatest strength. I have wrestled with my own resentments, but when I chose to forgive, it was as if chains fell away and I could finally breathe again." A ripple of acknowledgment spread through the gathering. Murmurs cascaded like a gentle stream, hearts opening to the possibility that had once seemed unachievable. David could feel the currents of emotion, each person wrestling with memories and feelings that had kept them at a distance. Mary, noticing their hesitance, stepped forward. "Forgiveness doesn't diminish our pain. It acknowledges it, but it also tells us that we are worthy of love and peace. God's love redeems us all, and He asks us to extend that grace to one another." The crowd hushed, drawn in by her sincerity. A vulnerability broke through the air, allowing each person to reflect on their own experiences. David's heart quivered with shared hope, knowing that there was potential for transformation, should they muster the courage to embrace this lesson. Just then, a young woman named Eliana, usually shy, rose timidly. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I lost my brother to anger. I never got to say goodbye," she confessed, her voice quivering. "I am angry at him and at myself. I want to forgive him, but it feels so hard." The weight of her words hung in the air, like a sacred offering. David felt the tension, a mix of grief and longing, as Eliana fought through her heartache. The crowd leaned in closer, collectively holding space for her pain. Mary stepped closer, empathy radiating from her voice. "Eliana, in forgiving, you honor your brother's memory. It's a path of beauty that leads the way to your own healing. Let us take that step together." As murmurs of support surrounded Eliana, a gentle breeze tousled the leaves overhead, echoing hope and love through the grove. David noticed a few hands reaching out, clasping together as if forging bonds anew. Then, as if whispered by the divine, the night air shimmered. David sensed something powerful stirring. This was only the beginning. Forgiveness was the catalyst for the change they desperately needed. Would they find the courage to forgive one another? Could they embrace the deepest lessons of love? As stars twinkled above, David felt the power of belief solidify among them. Tomorrow would be a day of revelation, unfolding the sacredness within healing hearts. Would these villagers take the leap into forgiveness together, nurturing a flame that would outshine the darkest nights? As that thought hung in the air, The possibility of divine transformation felt oh so close. As the dawn broke, a tender light spilled over the grove. The villagers awoke to the soft chirping of birds, like a divine choir welcoming them to a new day. David felt the warmth of the sun on his face. It was a reminder that each day held fresh possibilities for their hearts. They gathered again, their eyes reflecting the promise of forgiveness. The air was thick with anticipation. David noticed Mary's gentle smile, a beacon of encouragement, as she looked at the others. Each face around them spoke of hope and vulnerability mixed with the faint remnants of an old, haunting pain. Samuel stood again at the forefront of the group. "This is a morning of purpose," he began, his voice resonant, like a bell tolling softly in a sacred space. "The challenge of forgiveness is upon us. Let us not merely speak of it, but embrace it. Today, we will share our burdens and lay them down." Eliana stood beside Samuel, her heart racing. The communal strength wrapped around her like a warm embrace. The guilt of unspoken words and feelings swirled within her as she looked at the faces around her. "I want to let go," she breathed out, almost like a prayer. With a nod, Mary encouraged Eliana. "You're already on the right path. Start with one memory that holds you captive." She moved closer to Eliana, their hands intertwining, a physical manifestation of support. Eliana took a deep breath, drawing strength from her surroundings. "I remember," she began, her voice gaining clarity as she spoke. "There was a time when my brother laughed, and we danced in the rain. In those moments, we were unshakable." A few teardrops escaped her eyes, but they held a different weight today, a mix of joy and sorrow. The villagers listened, their hearts shifting. They could feel the power of shared memories. One by one, whispers of love began to fill the air, each childhood story woven together like a rich tapestry of connection. David felt a stirring within. Could sharing their stories bring them closer? He saw Samuel nodding, urging them to release what no longer served their spirits. The realization dawned together they were stronger. Mary encouraged others to share. "Let us speak of our pain. As we unburden ourselves, we walk closer to forgiveness. There is love in vulnerability." With each story, the atmosphere transformed. Old wounds were aired, and villagers found comfort in knowing they were not alone. Anger and hurt began to dissipate like morning mist. Hands clasped tighter, hearts began to resonate, and the laughter returned, echoing the joy that forgives and unifies. Then, as the children played nearby, a sudden hush fell over the gathering. An ethereal glow flickered among the trees, and birds circled above. It was as if the very heavens orchestrated this moment. David's heart raced at the sight. Could this be a sign of divine approval? Tears streamed down Eliana's face, but now they were tears of release bursting with the weight of grief transformed into hope. The villagers, inspired by her courage, began to pour out their souls too. The atmosphere swelled with emotion, embracing all. David sensed something divine stirring. Could it be? Was their collective spirit drawing near to something magnificent? That morning, under the sprawling limbs of the ancient trees, the seeds of healing took root. Would they nurture this growth, allowing forgiveness to blossom within their hearts? Or would the old shadows encroach again, stealing their joy? As they stood together, immersed in shared light and laughter, questions lingered like sparks in the air. Would they take the next steps toward divine transformation? What awaited them beyond the courage to forgive? As the sun climbed higher, bathing the grove in golden light, a profound stillness settled among the villagers. They felt the warmth not just from the sun, but from the shared connection that bound them together. This ethereal morning had kindled something deeper, a thirst for transformation. David, with newfound courage, stepped forward. "We have shared our stories of pain," he began, his voice steady. "But what if we now give voice to forgiveness? Let us speak the words we need to hear." A palpable energy filled the space as he spoke. Mary nodded in agreement, her eyes shining with encouragement. "Yes, imagine how freeing it would be. Forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves. It releases our souls, and it invites the divine light to enter the darkest corners of our hearts." The villagers looked among themselves, pondering the challenge laid before them. It was one thing to share sorrow, but to voice the act of forgiveness felt monumental. Eliana, her heart still fluttering from her earlier release, took a step forward. "I forgive you, Mark," she said softly, locking eyes with a boy she had grown up with. Their friendship had been strained by misunderstandings and old grievances, and it was time to mend that bond. "I forgive you too, Eliana," he replied, his voice trembling with vulnerability. It was a gentle spark that ignited gentle whispers of forgiveness around the circle. Each villager began to name someone they needed to forgive. They spoke the names out loud, like precious offerings to the divine. "I forgive my father," whispered Samuel, tears brimming in his eyes for the father who had often seemed distant, trapped in his own struggles. "I forgive myself," came another soft voice, mingling with the breeze. It was Peter, a quiet man who often felt overshadowed by the stronger voices around him. As he spoke those words, a visible lightness enveloped him, as if a great burden was lifted from his shoulders. The atmosphere felt charged, alive with the power of each declaration. David watched as faces transformed, shadows lifting. Laughter bubbled and joy surged, renewed by the practice of releasing what had weighed heavily on their souls. Mary stepped closer, fanning the flames of spontaneity. "Let us also speak our hopes. What do we wish to grow in this newfound space?" The questions hung in the air, shimmering like dew. Hearts swelled with expectation. One by one, they began to share. "I hope to heal my family," whispered Ruth, her voice quaking with emotion. "I hope to rebuild our community," Samuel chimed in, his determination clear. As each offering was shared, the grove seemed to respond. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves high above, as if the trees themselves were stirring in agreement. David felt an overwhelming presence surrounding them, a reminder that they were not alone in their journey. But as the words flowed, a thought flickered deep within him. What would happen when they faced the pitfalls of doubt once more? Would forgiveness still hold when life threw them into trials? That evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky blazed with hues of orange and purple, there was an unmistakable shift. The villagers formed a circle, holding hands tightly. Samuel's voice rose in a prayer of gratitude, resonating like a hymn. And in that sacred moment, David dared to ponder what if true freedom awaited them just beyond the horizon of their shared forgiveness? Would they dare to step into that promise with unwavering faith? The air hummed with promise and peril, and as he looked into the eyes of his friends, a wave of anticipation settled over him. Would they find a way to maintain this light amid shadows that would eventually press upon them once more? The answers lay ahead, shrouded in divine mystery, waiting to be uncovered. Would they be ready to embrace the trials that would surely come? As night draped its velvet cloak over the grove, the air shifted. Flickering firelight danced on the villagers' faces, casting a warm, inviting glow. Laughter and soft music mingled, echoing the hope that had taken root in their hearts. Yet, beneath the surface of this joy, David sensed an undercurrent of anxiety. The whispers of doubt beckoned, reminding him that their newfound light could very well meet the shadows again. "Gather around," Mary called, her voice strong yet soothing. "Let this fire be a symbol of our commitment, a reminder of the light we carry within ourselves and the light we can share with each other." As they sat, David breathed deeply, absorbing the moment. Each flicker of the flames felt as though it spoke to him, igniting his thoughts. They had ventured into forgiveness, but the path of healing was rarely linear. Would they falter when faced with the old pain, the familiar heartaches that had once bound them? "I worry that it will be easy to forget," he admitted, breaking the silence. "When challenges arise, will we still remember this feeling of unity, this promise of hope?" A murmur of agreement brushed through the group. Eliana, sitting close to David, nodded. "I understand. It's easy to speak from the heart when everything feels bright. But what about when darkness creeps in?" Ruth spoke next, her voice strong and clear. "Perhaps the key is to hold each other accountable. We can remind one another of our voices of forgiveness, of our shared hopes. We must be the light when shadows fall." David felt warmth spreading through him, a sense of clarity emerging. As they shared their fears aloud, the shadows began to diminish. "Yes, let's commit to surrounding ourselves with reminders. Let us create a space where our dreams can grow and our memories can endure." With a resolve rippling through the attendees, they began to envision tangible symbols of their newfound bonds. Mary quickly took charge. "How about a community garden?" she suggested, her enthusiasm infectious. Each of us can plant something as a commitment to our healing journey, a living reminder of what we stand for. Laughter erupted, and soon everyone was discussing what they would plant. Samuel's face brightened at the thought of tomatoes, while Eliana envisioned flowers that attracted butterflies. The garden would serve as a testament to their journey, a living tapestry of hope. Yet, somewhere deep, David couldn't shake the feeling of impending trials. He raised his hand for attention. We must also prepare for the storms. If weeds of doubt threaten our garden, what will we do? Silence fell again, a heavy contemplative silence. After a moment, Peter stood up, his eyes alight with inspiration. We'll have each other, he said. Conversations, prayers, maybe even a journal where we can write down our struggles. In unity, we'll remind ourselves of our purpose. David felt a swell of gratitude within him. They were planting more than just seeds in soil. They were sowing resilience in their hearts. As night deepened, the fire crackled and popped, illuminating their faces, forming a circle of warmth and commitment. But as they shared laughter and dreams, David recalled the trials that could come: grief, misunderstanding, conflict. He held on to the hope that the light they had cultivated would overpower whatever storms waited beyond the horizon. In the quiet moments, he heard a still, small whisper, a promise lingering in the air. Dare to believe, it seemed to say. But what would they do when their faith was tested? With questions now stirring again in his heart, he looked around, his friends glowing in the firelight, their commitment illuminating the darkness. Would their garden flourish even when the rains fell? Would the divine guide them through trials yet unforeseen? As the flames danced, David felt the weight of the journey ahead. Inhaling deeply, he wondered, what divine lessons awaited them? Would they discover strength where they once felt weakness? In the soft glow of dawn, birds chirped, welcoming a day filled with promise. David awoke with a heart buoyed by hope, yet tethered by uncertainty. He gazed at the view outside, where the sun brushed tenderly against the fields, awakening the world from its slumber. Today was the day of their community garden, their commitment to healing and growth. Mary joined him, her smile radiating warmth. Let us be the light, David. Our garden will thrive just like our spirits if we nurture them with love. With newfound determination, they set out, arms laden with shovels and seeds, symbols of their collective strength. As they reached the grove, the villagers began to gather, each face reflecting a mixture of excitement and lingering trepidation. David felt a camaraderie in the air, a palpable energy that bound them all together, stronger than doubt. Father Thomas addressed the crowd, his voice a soft melody of encouragement. Today, we plant not only seeds in the soil, but also seeds in our hearts. Each flower, each plant, is a testament to our faith and willingness to embrace hope, even when shadows threaten. Hands joined together as they broke the earth. David dug in, sweat mingling with tears of gratitude that seemed to flow freely. Each shovel of dirt felt like releasing the burdens of the past. With Mary beside him, he listened to every soul share stories, hopes, and dreams as they planted their seeds: a lavender for peace, a tomato for nourishment, and sunflowers for joy. As the sun climbed higher, laughter and chatter filled the air, drowning out the whispers of doubt. Yet, in the back of David's mind, a faint worry lingered. What if this moment fades? What if struggle comes again? But then he saw Eliana, kneeling beside a sprouting plant, her fingers brushing the soil. I forgive you, my brother, she spoke aloud, tears cascading down her cheeks. With every inch this plant grows, so does my heart's capacity to love. The villagers gathered, witnessing her moment of vulnerability and healing. It ignited a fire within them, prompting them to share their own struggles and hopes. Joy and sorrow mingled in perfect harmony. David felt his own heart lighten, grateful for the collective spirit around him. The day stretched on, each plant becoming a physical manifestation of renewed faith. As they stood back, admiring their work, they sensed an unseen force enveloping them. A gentle breeze whispered through the trees, stirring something deep within their souls. As twilight descended, a hush fell over the grove. It was as if the very earth held its breath, anticipating the next chapter in their journey. The beauty of the garden shone bright, mirroring the renewed spirits before it. David turned to Mary, her eyes alight with possibility. Here we have created not just a garden, but a sanctuary of love, David said, his voice steady, resonating with conviction. This community, this light among us, must endure the storms that come. Father Thomas stepped forward, urging them to commit. Let this garden remind you that growth demands patience. Just as this garden needs care through every season, so too must we tend to our hearts and faith. The villagers nodded solemnly, their hearts brimming with resolve. They knew storms would come. They could not escape life's uncertainties, but they could cultivate resilience. They could choose to forgive, share their hearts, and support one another. Let us gather each week, Mary suggested, glancing around the group. We can share prayers and updates, keep tending to what we planted in faith both here and in our hearts. A collective agreement swept through the assembly. David felt warmth surge through him. This unity, this commitment, anchored their spirits. They vowed to return to the garden, nurturing it as they did their connection with God and each other. As the sun dipped below the horizon, vibrant orange and deep purples painted the sky, a divine reminder that beauty emerges from both light and darkness. David smiled, knowing tomorrow, and every day after, was a continuation of this journey together they would face. Whatever came with hearts united. In that sacred space, David reflected on the miracles they had witnessed, not just in the return of love, but also in the power of community, forgiveness, and faith. The hardest lesson had revealed the strength within them, blooming like their beloved garden, a testament to resilience, love, and unwavering hope. The moment felt weighty, almost sacred, as the villagers joined hands, entrusting their burdens to the heavens. They lifted their voices in prayer, a melody rising like incense, swirling up into the incandescent twilight. David's heart swelled with gratitude, a grand tapestry of revival and possibility woven through shared love and belief. But as the stars twinkled above, David understood unequivocally the journey wasn't over. It had only begun. Each miracle revealed invited them into deeper truths, each act of forgiveness breathlessly intertwined with divine purpose. With faith ignited, they stepped forward, ready to embrace whatever divine adventures awaited. In this mission, David found purpose, and in that, he found God once more. Now, family, this is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive faith stories. And leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and testimonies about this impactful ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this manifestation of faith. You need to take action now, because only true servants of God understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Don't wait even one more second.